Hi, I'm Claudia Lash. I have been quilting for many years and I've learned a couple things. And I wanted to tell you just a little tip uh, for if you're a new quilter or just getting started, or if you've been quilting for a while and are still interested in learning new things. For me, the most important thing about quilting was I was so interested when I started, and I still am, in learning new techniques, learning new ways to do what I want to do with fabric. When well, apparently over 20 years ago, I found a quilt, or saw a quilt by Louisa L. Smith, and it was called Strips and Curves. So I went and I took the class. I don't know if I took a class with her to do this, but I do know that I found the rulers. We had to have some curve rulers. I found the rulers and I made this Strips and Curves quilt. I made this in 2003 and really had a lot of fun with it. It's basically just sewing some different fabrics together and then cutting curves with them and sewing them together. So it's not terribly hard to do. And when you're done with the sewing of the curves, then you get to use decorative stitching inside the strips or wherever. And at that time, I thought that was great fun. I still love to do decorative stitching on my quilts. So, and one more tip I was thinking about with another quilt. When you are designing your quilts or when you're laying your blocks out for quilts, I think it's important to consider a few design tips. And one of them is think about nature and how in nature there is a heaviness to certain things. And in this quilt in particular, the heavier looking colors or the heavier looking objects are in the bottom. And the lighter looking, the yellows and whites and light greens and light blues, I put them at the top. I don't know that I consciously do that in all of my designs, but it is something that I do think about, because if we look at a quilt and it's backwards and the lights are at the bottom and the darks are at the top, it's not that we don't like the colors, it's that it bothers us because they're off center. We want to turn them around to be normal like nature is. So this is one quilt I made with strips and curves, and I'm going to show you another one in the other room too. Just one second. Okay, now we are in my happy place in the sewing room where I have another Strips and Curves quilt. Apparently I couldn't get enough, and you know, when you buy rulers, you kind of keep buying rulers. So I not only have the original Strips and Curves rulers, I got the Strips and Curves, well, this is the basic set too, and then I even got a Strips and Curves mini beg and borrow set. I don't quite know if I've even got a quilt using this one, but I did use these with this Strips and Curves quilt. And while I'm thinking about it, if you're interested in a Strips and Curves quilt, Louisa L. Smith, I don't think she teaches still, but I know you can get her books. They're available in different places online. You can also get the rulers at, I looked on the website, there's a gal in Texas, I think. Her name is Debbie Walters, and she has rulers for Strips and Curves. If you go to her website, Designing with Strips and Curves, and you can find all of these ruler sets. So this strips and curves I liked much better than the other one. This one is still kind of old, 2009. This is called Roundabouts. Roundabouts were just kind of coming into style around here, or the few years before, 2009, and so I thought this was a good name for the quilt. Here, instead of using mostly solids, I did use some, well, quite a few print fabrics, and also there's some applique that I just added on in different places. Well, these little flowers here might have been done with that. I don't know, with that beg and borrow set, because they're very small circles. But in this strips and curves, you have places where you can make rings around things, and it just is. It's just very fun to try to sew your fabrics into strips and then cut them out and lay your pieces in different areas until you have a quilt that you like. And then when you have it pieced, then you get to take it to your sewing machine. And I don't know how well you can see, but I'll bring the camera over here in a minute. And there are decorative stitches in every one of these, well, I think in every one of these spots in between the piecing. It's just very, very, very fun idea, and especially if you like to kind of do your own thing. This is the kind of quilt which I think you would love to make. And there are rulers available, and it's not that hard. I don't have a pattern for these, but if you get a book, you can, you know, there's just no end of the fun you could have with strips and curves quilts. So my final thought for everyone today is keep on learning, and take classes. If there is a place near you where you can find out, or where teachers come from all over, definitely sign up, take the class. You will learn something. You will learn something in every class. If you don't learn from the teacher, you will learn from the other people in the class. It's a great thing to keep your quilting spirit going.